Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. It is 10 o'clock. I am Tim Harris. It is time for 10 with Tim. How are you doing? I really love being back in the saddle with you guys. Again, I really missed the 2 weeks when I was at camp. I love being at camp so much, but I love being with you too. So it's good to be back. We are finishing Numbers chapter 16 today, verses 36 through 50. I still think this is great stuff. This is a really good aftermath of the story from yesterday. It's the aftermath of that story where Korah and Dathan and Abiram are, the earth opens up and swallows them, and then the other 250 rebels, those rebel men, are destroyed by fire. This is what happens next. Interestingly, I mean, I'm interested, you may not care, but in the Hebrew Bible, chapter 17 begins, I think, right here. So there's a little bit of discrepancy about where the chapters end and begin, but at any rate, we're continuing chapter 16 in English Bibles. And so in verse 36, Eleazar, who is Aaron's son, is given a very special task to go take the incense burners out of the cold, dead hands, or they're probably not cold yet, y'all. I mean, the fire just struck down these 250 men, remember the rebels, and their rebellion is to try to offer incense as if they're priests when they're not appointed as priests. And so God destroys them. And now Eleazar has the task of going and collecting all those incense burners. Interestingly, they're holy. I just find that kind of amazing. These incense burners were in the hands, I mean, they were the instrument of sin by these men who are destroyed for their sin. But because, I mean, the men walked into the presence of God, and because these silver, incense burners have been in the presence of God, they're now holy. Isn't that interesting? Holy, instruments coming from these unholy hands of the men who sinned by using them. I just think that's really, really interesting. And so Eleazar is charged to collect like 250 of these incense burners, melt them down because they're solid silver, melt them down. He hammers all that silver into sheets and then wraps the altar in silver, creates a covering, a silver plate, if you will, for the altar. It's supposed to be a reminder, a warning to people from now on, and the warning is basically don't be acting like a priest if God never called you a priest. I mean, so all this happens, and then the very next day, according to this passage, verse 41, the very next day, it's like the people start another rebellion. It's crazy. They're either the shortest memories in the world or they have no fear of God whatsoever. But now the people come up now yammering at Aaron and Moses that Aaron and Moses have killed God's people. Like they're blaming, and these people don't even want a savior. They want a scapegoat. They just want somebody they can blame, somebody they can throw off a cliff. And so they're angry at Moses and Aaron as if it's their fault that the earth swallowed up Korah. That the fire came down from heaven. It's like Moses and Aaron did that. It's clearly God, but these people clearly don't. They just don't get any of this. They continue to be completely ignorant of God and His ways and His power, or completely, disrespectful of it, while at the same time constantly challenging and deriding the leadership, authority, and integrity of Moses and Aaron. It's unthinkable. So they come in with this, and then as they're protesting, the cloud comes down on the tabernacle, which means God comes near, and God says to Moses and Aaron, tell the people, get away from the people, get away from the people. I'm about to destroy them. But again, Moses and Aaron fall face down on the ground. I think it's interesting here. I mean, at this, again, Moses is such a better Christian than I am, because I promise you, I would probably just say, oh, Lord, it's about time. Get them, smoke them. I'm done with them. But Moses and Aaron do not respond in frustration or anything other than intercession. They fall to their knees and they start to pray. Now, from there, a plague breaks out. A plague. I think the first time I read through that, I assumed that plague was like a disease, but this is not that. This is more like, there's a Hebrew word. It's the same word for the plagues of Egypt. And it's not simply like a pestilence or some sort of horrible disease. This is literally an act, like a sweeping act of death and destruction. It's like this wave of death, and the people are just literally just dropping dead, rapidly. And so notice what happens. Moses said, quick, grab an incense burner, which is really interesting. Grab an incense burner, place coals from the altar, and carry it among the people to purify them and make them right with the Lord. This, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the only time that incense is used for this kind of atonement, to make them right with God. Usually that's blood, but in this case it's incense from the altar, and Aaron runs into the plague. Literally, the Hebrew there says that he stands between the dead and the living. I just think it's amazing. This sweeping act of death and coming like a wave, and Aaron grabs the incense and runs straight into it and stands between the dead people and the living people. It's just an amazing act of intercession. But as a spiritual leader, I'm moved by this. I'm convicted by this. I'm inspired by this. I want to be that kind of leader. I want to be the kind of spiritual leader that runs into the suffering, that runs toward, the darkness, and runs toward the people in need, not away. The tendency would be, of course, to stand back, to protect yourself, because you're thinking, man, okay, if I get hit with it, then nobody's going to preach on Sunday. The instinct as a spiritual leader is to overinflate your own importance. If I'm not here, people die and go to hell. If I'm not here, there's nobody to preach. There's nobody to run this church. And I want to be that guy who would run into the suffering, to lay my life down for others at the risk of personal, harm. Just others first. And this is clearly and purely what Moses and Aaron do. And I just think it's just so magnificent. Again, this offering of incense, which is always somehow symbolic of prayer. And so in this case, it's that prayerful intercession, that just laying themselves on the line for the people, that stops the death and destruction, even though 14,700 people die in that single moment. 14,700 people. That number is less to stress how bad the death was and more to stress how important the intercession was. More people would have died had Moses and Aaron not stepped out in the midst of that plague and stopped that spread of death. Obviously, this scene sort of gives you a preview or flash forward of what Jesus does when Jesus, steps down from heaven, comes down into the world where we are, becomes one of us. He who knew no sin becomes sin itself. He literally takes that plague of sin and death upon himself that we might be saved. Again, not with incense, but with his own precious blood. So again, there's a whole sermon there to preach about atonement and what Jesus does for us. But Moses and Aaron there, I think, are wonderful examples of what spiritual leadership is about. So there, I love that. I love that story so much. I love that whole episode, that whole rebellion. But I think the ending there is just somehow breathtakingly beautiful, and I thank God for it today. Tomorrow, read chapters 17 and 18 together, all right? Chapter 17 is about the budding of Aaron's staff, and it is short. It's a short chapter. So let's read two chapters, 17 and 18 together for tomorrow, and I will see you then, 10 o'clock, Lord willing, for 10 with Tim. Hope you have a great Tuesday. I hope you stay in the Word. I hope God blesses you. I hope it stops raining soon, and just we have summer. But in the meantime, I love you so much. Have a